So our job really starts at that youth level all the way up to what we call the tip of the pyramid to U.S. national teams.
Welcome back to the 76 Capital Sports Leadership Show. My name is Wayne Kimmel, managing partner of 76 Capital and host of this podcast. Today, my guest is Marc Riccio. Marc is the president and CEO of USA Lacrosse, a former Hofstra lacrosse player and longtime NFL executive. Marc has served as the CEO of USA Lacrosse since 2021. Marc, welcome to our 76 Capital Sports Leadership Show.
Thank you, Wayne. It's great to be here.
Well, it's great to see you again. I feel like we just were on stage together having a similar conversation at Peak, which was a great sports tech conference. It was the first conference that they have had in Las Vegas, and you were amazing. What did you think of Peak?
It was really good. The energy, both day one and day two, were impressive. The number of folks on the floor, the quality of the speakers was really well done conference. A lot of great conversation, a lot of good insight. I really enjoyed it.
There's a lot of energy in the room. I mean, it really was exciting to see everybody together, and it was exciting. They certainly were excited to hear about what's happening at USA Lacrosse, and I thought you did a great job sharing what was happening at USA Lacrosse. And I'd love for you to tell our audience here on our 76 Capital Sports Leadership Show, first of all, like, what is USA Lacrosse and where are we going here with everything?
So, and it's interesting you mentioned Peak as the lead-in. What I really enjoyed about Peak was the diversity of individuals speaking. You had tech to sports properties to leagues, and in our case, a national governing body, which is not always the case in terms of getting an audience to share what you do, how you use technology or innovation to move the sport forward. So, national governing body, we are an entity that is a 501c3 organization. We're mission-based, but as my treasurer said, 501c3 is a tax status, not a business model. Our job is to generate revenue to support the game, and that comes really in three buckets. And we say fuel the growth, enrich the experience, and field the best national teams. So governing bodies, our job is to put Olympic teams and world championship teams in the field of play, but also it's about the experience, background checks for coaches, coach education, rules, equipment standards, governance, not the real dynamic stuff, but the stuff that is necessary for a sport to function at all levels, day in and day out. And then what we call the base of the pyramid. That is providing more opportunities and fueling the growth for kids to pick up a stick. Certainly, that drives a pipeline of players that ultimately goes up to your national team. But more importantly, it creates financial stability, health and wellness for the game. And as we all know, more kids playing sport is good for communities. And so our job really starts at that youth level all the way up to what we call the tip of the pyramid to U.S. national teams. And we, as a governing body, are like USA Hockey, USA Basketball, USA Football, US Ski and Snow. And that's what we're tasked with doing for the sport of lacrosse for both men and women.
And what I find is so exciting, and I know you as well, and everybody involved in USA Lacrosse, is the fact that men's and women's lacrosse will be in the Olympics in 2028. I mean, every time I've said that to you, you get this amazing smile, and you must be so excited about that.
Oh, let's go. Yeah, I'll share a quick story. So this was a couple years ago, right after we found out that we were going to get into the Olympics. And we had a women's under 20 team on our campus, which is we've got a training facility headquarters down in Sparks, Maryland. And they were there for a training camp before they were going to go compete in Asia for a world championship. And we get together with all the teams to talk a little bit about what we do, how we do it. Because when you're an athlete, you're just going, you are competing. You're not thinking about NGB and, the entity. So our job is to educate these athletes about what we do. And I was having a conversation with them, and I said to them, I want you all to stop and close your eyes for a moment. Some of you in this room will walk out onto the floor of the Coliseum for the opening ceremonies in LA 28, and you will represent USA Lacrosse, and you will represent your sport at the Olympic Games. Stop and think about that for a moment. And it became real in that moment for these athletes to be like, oh, wow, like what I see on TV, I can do that. And that and was and has been incredibly impactful. And it's a great, wind tailwind for us to be able to talk about the Olympics, talk about, competing on the international stage, and more people will see the game of lacrosse than we've ever had in the history of our sport. And obviously, hopefully that, continues to drive more participation opportunities.
Well, I was going to get into this a little bit later, but let's while we're here. I mean, it's so exciting. As you said, you're going to have the athletes, USA Lacrosse, men's and women athletes, walking out there representing the country. Let's talk about the structure of the game, right? I mean, and sort of the difference, I guess, the 6-on-6 game that will be played at the Olympics versus what is the traditional game that's played in high school and college today, but even in the pros. So talk about what that's going to all look like and why that's so exciting.
Sure. So there are several factors that led to the creation of what is called sixes. And sixes is 6-on-6 lacrosse, men and women. The rule set for the men and women are more closely aligned than they say might be at the field level, but the women are not in equipment. They have goggles like they do at the field game. Men are in full equipment. But the game is more intuitive for the casual fan. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, it's played on a smaller field. There's no specialty. After a goal, there's no draw or face-off. The goalie picks up the stick, goes in the other direction. It's a much shorter shot clock. And so the idea behind it is like basketball. It is incredibly intuitive for the casual fan to turn on the TV or their device and watch and be like, oh, I get that. And some of the other factors that led to the development of sixes were you need less athletes to compete at a high level. So parity then comes into play. You've got just better teams that are closer aligned because you just need less great athletes to field competitive sixes teams. The other is when it comes to the Olympics and the cost structure of hosting the games, the idea of full field teams with 22 people on the roster for men and women and up to 6 nations, it's just so many more athletes, and that adds to the cost structure. And that adds to the infrastructure for not only housing the athletes, but putting on the games. And so just like flag football, which has a small squad size, lacrosse has a small squad size. But what's really interesting about sixes is when an individual, a young kid starts to play the game, they should be playing on a small-sided field, just like at this high level. And so it aligns with some of the great ways that you start to play the game. The other thing that's really important in terms of sixes is you ask the athletes about the experience, they love it. They love the game. From goalie right on through, it really does put an emphasis on an all-around great lacrosse player who can run the field, play offense, play defense, emotional IQ, creativity. So it really is an exciting version of the game. And we're seeing a lot more youth organizations start sixes programs, but you're also seeing high schools, like high schools in Texas, as an example, launch sixes programs, which is pretty exciting for the sport.
It really is. I mean, and as you said, it's like basketball. I mean, it was so interesting. We had that conversation about how the comparison of lacrosse and basketball and how similar the games are.
I would love to say this. This is for all parents, coaches. When you look at lacrosse not only in and of itself is great in terms of developing, physical attributes, mental attributes around athlete health, health and wellness. But if you're a multi-sport athlete, lacrosse is an incredible complement to basketball, to field hockey, to football, because the principles of matchups, offensive concepts as a team, defensive concepts, sliding, pick and roll, two-man game, boxing out, fast breaks, all of these concepts that you see in sports like football, but also sports like basketball, creating separation, crossover, roll dodges. It's so similar to basketball. It's an incredible complement to your footwork, to your hand-eye coordination, to your IQ and processing skills. And that's what makes lacrosse so special is, one, by itself, it's a great game, but it's also a great complement to other sports.